Welcome back to Get Well Acadiana with Dr. Kevin. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. This is the show designed to bring you the very latest in natural health care every single week. I'm here with my co-host, Brandon Como. Brandon, how are you?
Doing well, Doc.
Man, listen, last week's show had one of the largest interest and responses as I think we've ever gotten.
Yeah. That doesn't surprise me considering how popular keto is right now.
You know, humans are a funny group. You know, I can talk about cancer. I can talk about how not to die. I can talk about, all these other things. And you talk about keto and everybody loves it. You just never know,
Yeah.
We are a funny group as humans. But I wanted to answer some of the questions that I got from last week's show. It was one of the largest responses that we've ever gotten, and I had so many people contact me with questions about how this works and what they need to do. And some people have tried it and it didn't work for them, and that's because they were doing a few things wrong. So I really wanted to dive a little bit more into the details on the keto program today on the show. I had so many people ask me to do that, and there's some complexities that I didn't really have a chance to cover on last week's show because I ran out of time because I like to talk too much. And the other thing that we talked about last week is I told our listeners that, if you guys want me to put together a workshop on this keto topic, then if enough of you call, then I would be willing to do that for you guys. And we did have enough people call to do that. So that's exactly what we've done. It's going to be Wednesday, May the 8th. That's this Wednesday at 6:30. And it's called 8 Tips to the Ketogenic Diet. And I really tried to keep it less than that. But there's kind of 8 things that you need to know about if you're going to be successful at this program. And I just didn't feel right leaving any of those things out. I usually try to keep things to like 4 or 5, but there's just a lot of little details that if you mess up or you don't do right, you're not going to get the quite as good of results if you follow these 8 little simple steps. We've got recipes. I've put together a little bit of the biology of how it works. We're going to we're going to talk about food timing and how to measure it all in a real simple way. It's going to be one of the best workshops I've ever put together. I think that, if you're interested in the keto program or you're interested in losing weight, you guys absolutely should come to the program. Now, Brandon, one of the questions you had last week was on fasting and keto.
Mm-hmm.
And once we get finished with this first segment, I'm going to discuss that in depth because Dr. Mercola's new book is called Keto Fast, where he breaks all of this down, how the ketogenic diet and fasting and intermittent fasting kind of go together and the timing of it all and all of that. So I wanted to get into that just a little bit more. But before we do any of that, I wanted to start by giving Dr. Mercola full and complete credit for a lot of what I'm going to say today. A lot of this is not my information, and I've not read his new book because it's just not out yet. But there are several experts in natural health care. Some of the most popular doctors out there in natural health care all feel like that this keto program is the way to go. And, Dr. Mercola is one of them. And his new book, Keto Fast, is something that I would strongly suggest everyone out there listening get it. Last I heard, it wasn't out yet. I'm not sure if it's out yet or not. I know it's either been just released or it's about to be released, but it's called Keto Fast. I think there's going to be a lot of great information out there in it. And if you missed last week's show, one of the things that we talked about is that there are 4 primary fuels which can be used by the human body to fuel its processes. Your cells are designed to do things. A muscle cell contracts, a stomach cell produces acid, a nerve cell transmits, and on throughout your whole body. And in order for your cells to do those processes, they need fuel. And your body has 4 primary fuels that it can use to fuel these processes. Either glucose, protein, fatty acids, or ketones. And the thing that determines which one of those fuels your body is going to use is carbohydrate availability. Meaning, if you're always eating a bunch of crappy carbohydrates, your body has no reason to use any of these other fuel sources. And we also said last week, right after that, that the average American has 7 times too many carbohydrates in their diet, meaning if most people have so many carbohydrates that they're eating all the time, their body has no reason to burn any fat or anything else as fuel. And we also then mentioned that carbohydrates are a very dirty burning fuel for your brain and for your body. They create free radicals, they create cellular damage, and they create inflammation. And inflammation is the precursor to almost all chronic diseases. But in fasting or in the ketogenic diet, ketones play a much larger role in energy production, and ketones and fats are a very clean burning fuel for your body. When your body goes into ketosis from the ketogenic diet, it has a massive anti-inflammatory effect on your body, as does fasting. Fasting is a very regenerative thing to do for your body. Both of these things are so beneficial in so many ways. Everything from post-traumatic brain injuries to Alzheimer's to dementia and arthritis and cancer, heart disease. I mean, there's so many things that this ketogenic program and ketosis does that's positive inside your body. Really is one of the best things that you could do. And it's absolutely beneficial for diabetes and pre-diabetes. And all of this became popular back when Dr. Atkins came out with his Atkins diet. And in the late 90s, this was really a 180-degree difference from the current thinking out there in the medical field about what we should be eating. You know, back then, everything was cut out the fats, cut out the butter and the eggs, and eat baked potatoes with nothing on them. And, we now realize that Dr. Atkins was right this whole time. Now, also on last week's show, we mentioned that there are huge benefits in things like epilepsy because these carbohydrates damage your brain and create brain inflammation. And then there was one study that found that keto improves your insulin sensitivity by 75%. Another study found that type 2 diabetes, they found that 95% of their participants were either able to stop or reduce their diabetes medicine. Now, it is such a shame. Oh, and a third of the participants were able to stop using their diabetic medicine altogether. Now, isn't it a shame that there's millions of people out there that have been to their physician with diabetes, and there's these studies out there that show that we can reduce 95% of it with a keto diet, and your physician never told you that. That's such a shame. And so at this workshop, I will explain why blood sugar and diabetes responds so well to the ketogenic diet. And I'll talk a little bit about the biology of it and how your body takes these ketones and they become anti-inflammatory and they burn clean in your body. And not in a real complex way, but just so that you can understand the benefits of it. And then I'm also going to give you guys some examples of foods like we did last week on the ketogenic diet. And, foods that you can eat on keto are organic grass-fed red meat, organic grass-fed steaks and bacon and chicken and turkey, lots of great meat. Also, we talked about wild-caught salmon and healthy cold water fish that, of course, is wild-caught. And really filling foods like butter and cream and cheese, and then lots of nuts and seeds and avocados, and, of course, organic free-range eggs. This diet is not suffering. You're not eating like a rabbit on this diet. These are high-fat, filling, really good foods that, really rich, good foods that you can eat and you can cook with. And I know that I broke some hearts last week whenever I said that there is no such thing as keto king cakes and keto donuts. It just doesn't work that way, guys. You can't call something keto that isn't one of those foods that I talked about that has high, healthy fats and that work for you. It just doesn't. Now, in case you missed last week's show, we're going to dive into, on this next segment, a little bit more details about the biology that we covered last week on how your body processes this keto program so that it's anti-inflammatory and your cells work better and your body burns fat. It puts you in what we call a fat burning mode. And also, I am hosting a free community workshop Wednesday night on May 8th at 6:30 at the Hampton Inn in Broussard. Several of you asked me to put together a workshop on this, and so I told y'all last week, if enough of y'all call, I will put together something on this for you, and this thing is filling up really quickly. We're limited to about, I think, 20 or 30 seats. So if you want to come, you need to register at 837-7174. That's 837-7174 to take about an hour. It's going to be Wednesday, 6:30 to 7:30. It's an hour out of your day to learn one of the best diet and nutrition programs out there. 837-7174. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Get Well Acadiana with Dr. Kevin. Thank you so much for joining us on this very important show today. We are in the middle of a discussion on the benefits of the ketogenic diet and its physiological effects on the human body. And it's important that you understand insulin is the key to health and disease prevention. Insulin is the key to health and disease prevention. Controlling your insulin is one of the most important things you can do for your health. They're looking at study after study of how insulin is one of those very important markers as to whether or not you're going to develop a chronic disease. And I don't just mean diabetes. They're starting to connect it to many other things as well. Insulin is key to health and disease prevention. And one of the things that always perplexes me is that we don't test insulin on traditional lab work. I bet those out there listening that are diabetic and that have been to the doctor for almost any problem whatsoever have never had your insulin tested. They've tested your blood sugar, and they may have tested your A1C, but they don't test your insulin. Insulin is key to understanding how the diabetic patient is going to heal. Insulin is also the key to understanding how your body can metabolize fat and weight. And why we would not want to check that more often, I will never understand. It's one of the most effective things you can determine as to whether or not this patient is going to develop a chronic disease. Looking at their insulin levels. Why we would not want to check that, I just don't get it. One of the most effective ways that you can control insulin level is to optimize your insulin sensitivity. An estimated 80% of Americans are already insulin resistant, even though their glucose levels are normal. But since we don't ever check insulin, it goes undiagnosed, placing them at an increased risk for chronic disease. And the low-carb ketogenic diet addresses the metabolic aspect of health by controlling insulin. Ketogenic diet drives down your insulin level, and as your insulin level decreases, your metabolism increases. So insulin and metabolism are inversely proportional, meaning if you have a whole bunch of insulin in your body, you're going to be sluggish and a slow metabolism. If you have very little insulin in your body, you're going to have an up and fast metabolism. And that's one of the keys to you losing weight, is dealing with your metabolism. How fast are you going to burn this fat? Ketogenesis also sparks something in your body called autophagy. And I'm going to get into autophagy way more in the next segment. But what that is, autophagy is a process that your body goes through where it chews up and disposes of damaged cells and damaged tissues, and thus reversing and preventing disease. So imagine if you're looking at your cells through a microscope. Those cells have been damaged, and there are pieces of those damaged cells just sort of hanging out there, clogging up the system. Autophagy is the process of where those cellular particles, those toxins, and just those impurities get taken away and cleaned out so that your cells and your system can run better. This plays a critical role. Autophagy plays a critical role in aging and cancer. And in one interview, Dr. Benjamin Beichman, Dr. Beichman is an obesity and diabetes scientist and also associate professor of physiology and developmental biology at Brigham Young. So, he's up there. And he's one of the lead researchers on this insulin sensitivity problem. And there's another Dr. Joseph Kraft, who they did a study together, and Dr. Kraft is with St. Joseph's Hospital in Chicago. They looked really closely at this insulin sensitivity problem, and they're finding out that it's a lot more than just a diabetes problem. Insulin sensitivity affects the way your metabolism works, leading you prone to lots of other diseases as well. And I'm talking heart disease and cancer and, lots of other things as well. So the bottom line with all of that, guys, is that insulin is the key to disease prevention and long-term healthy life. So controlling the crappy carbohydrates is the most effective way to control your insulin. And that's why the ketogenic diet is so much more than just a weight loss plan. It will help you live a longer life. And, unfortunately, many doctors still don't even understand the influence that insulin has on disease. That's why they don't test it more often. They don't really understand the role that insulin plays in all of these other processes and all of these other metabolic systems in the body. But insulin is critical to so many other things and so many other systems that deal with a long, healthy, controlling weight type life, in the future. And if someone's fasting glucose is normal and their insulin levels are still way off, then they are in fact insulin resistant. Dr. Kraft's data suggested that 80% of Americans are in fact insulin resistant. So that's not me saying that. That's this professor at St. Joseph's Hospital in Chicago saying that 80% of Americans are in fact already having problems with their insulin. And remember, insulin is key to controlling your health and allowing you to have a long, healthy weight and a long, healthy life in the future. I would agree with that statistic. We test patients' insulin all the time in our functional medicine program. And I would say probably 80% of the people we test have insulin problems whenever we test it. And many of those people had never had, or most of them have never even had their insulin tested before. Also, insulin promotes something called fatty liver, which, by the way, guys, I know several patients come in to me and say that their doctor told them they had a fatty liver. And I'll say, well, what does that mean? And they say, I have no idea. And I said, well, what did he tell you about it? Well, he didn't really have any idea either. If you've been told you have a fatty liver, you should absolutely come to this workshop and start keto. I have a whole section in there on fatty liver and what that means and how dangerous that is for your future health and what you can do in order to solve that in your body. Because fatty liver and insulin resistance are connected to chronic disease and an early death. Also, fatty liver and insulin resistance have now just new studies been connected to high blood pressure. And which is another thing that always kind of gets under my skin. You know, patients are told they have high blood pressure and nobody even goes, well, why do I have that? What can I do to fix that on my own? It's just, well, you have high blood pressure and it's just the way it is. That's not the way it is. Guys, these things are predictors of how long and healthy your life will be. These things are predictors of how long your lifespan will be and what diseases you will get. Your fatty liver and your insulin resistance and all of these things are flags. Your high blood pressure, your atherosclerosis, all of these things are red flags that someone needs to figure out how to take care of for you. It's important that you don't ignore these signals that your body is starting to lose its health. In natural health care, in my program, it's important that we solve these things once and for all in your body. So how do we treat insulin resistance? With Dr. Beichman, his research reveals that the ketogenic diet is one of the best ways to fix insulin resistance. And remember, 80% of the people are. And I love how Dr. Beichman puts it in one of his interviews. He said that insulin has its hands on the steering wheel of your body's energy levels and your body's metabolism. Insulin is the steering mechanism of your fat storage. It's the steering mechanism of your energy and your health in the future. And his research shows that as your metabolism increases, your insulin level decreases. So if you have insulin sensitivity and your insulin is way higher than normal, your metabolism will be really low. And the problem with that, guys, is it starts a downward spiral. The higher your insulin, the slower your metabolism. So the more fat you gain, so the higher your insulin, so the slower your metabolism. And then you end up looking up and, you're 50 or 60 pounds overweight. Very important that you handle this as quickly as you possibly can. One of the most important markers for a predictive disease, and all of you out there have never even had it tested, insulin. Insulin is one of the most important markers for predictive diseases. And many of the local labs I've talked to, because I've looked into this before, many of the local labs I've talked to, they don't even have the machinery to test for insulin. It's such a rare thing that they get asked to do. We use a lab out of New York that all of our blood gets sent up there, and in about a week we get the results back, and we test insulin very, very commonly, and we see people's insulin way out of control on so many different cases. And then we can begin to lay the groundwork to not only get you to lose weight, but to also solve these very important markers in your body that are predictive of so many of today's chronic diseases. And we do it all naturally. That's what we do in natural healthcare. That's what this is supposed to be about. And we're going to get into this a lot more in my workshop on Wednesday night called 8 Tips to the Ketogenic Diet. If you want to register, we do have limited seating. All you have to do is call my office at 837-7174 and leave your name and number on the machine. We'll call you back Monday when we get back to work to book your seat and get you all registered. It's going to be Wednesday night at 6:30, Hampton Inn in Broussard. The number's 837-7174. Now, Guys, when we get back from this next break, we're going to talk a little bit more about fasting and Dr. Mercola's new book called Keto Fast. Don't go away. We'll be right back. That number again was 837-7174. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Get Well Acadiana with Dr. Kevin. Thank you so much for joining me on the show today. We're continuing our discussion on the ketogenic diet today, and I wanted to reiterate one more time before we move on. A lot of the information on the show today is not mine. It is either Dr. Joseph Mercola's or Dr. Bikeman's or Dr. Kraft's. I'm just here telling you about it. So the research on this keto program, though, is it just every time research comes out, it's just showing more and more benefits. Now, in Dr. Mercola's new book called Keto Fast, I've read a little bit about this, and one of the ways that you can avoid the dark side of fasting and ketosis is with keto fasting. So the way I understand this, guys, is the ketogenesis, long-term keto, has its drawbacks. In other words, if you do the ketogenic diet for 2 years or a year, that has some negative effects on your body, as does fasting. If you do fasting where you just say drink water for 3 or 4 days, that has some really damaging and negative effects on your body as well. And so what Dr. Mercola has attempted to do is to take the dark side of fasting and keto out and blend intermittent fasting with the ketogenic diet in a way that it's the best thing for your body. But fasting and partial fasting, intermittent fasting, activates powerful metabolic processes that catalyze healing and rejuvenation in your body. Fasting is a powerful healing mechanism in the body. And in his new book called Keto Fast, he gives you a step-by-step guide to timing your ketogenic meals. And where this book veers from the norm is in the execution of intermittent fasting. And it's really a complete system that couples intermittent fasting with cyclical ketogenic eating. And, guys, listen, fasting has been part of human history for centuries. I mean, it was talked about back even like biblical days. Even in the 15th century, physicians were talking about fasting as being the greatest remedy for the human body. And this is in the 15th century. In the early 1900s in the United States, fasting then began to gain popularity as a way to get your body to heal. But nowadays, we have a large body of science confirming the benefits of intermittent fasting for therapeutic purposes. Calorie restriction activates powerful metabolic processes that rejuvenate your cells. One of the leading experts on this is Dr. Jason Fung. He's written books and conducted lots of important research on fasting, and he demonstrates the benefits and the safety of this calorie restriction or this intermittent fasting. But the thing that concerned Dr. Mercola about this is that whenever you fast, it releases toxins, which are even more so if you're just doing a water fasting. So the thing about that, guys, is most of us are very, very toxic these days. And our detoxification pathways are very impaired. So that means that it really throws your body into a difficulty whenever you do just plain old water fasting, because your body tries to detoxify so rapidly, and our detoxification systems are so impaired that it can cause some real damaging effects on the body, and it can cause you to feel really, really bad as well. Now, we do a lot of cleansing and detoxification in my office, and this is something, guys, that you really have to know what you're doing because you can feel really bad. You have to pull all that stuff out of your body. Keep in mind, as you're pulling these impurities and toxins and chemicals and heavy metals out of your body, you're going to experience that. You have to have something that's going to grab on and get rid of that and carry that away, or you're going to almost go through a little bit of a poisoning. And so keto fasting addresses this by modifying the way that you fast and addressing nutrition that supports your detox pathways. And that's what's so cool about it, is it's a way to get the benefits of both without any of the negative side effects of both. So you're doing kind of both at the same time. Now, the first benefit that I wanted to talk to you guys about today is called autophagy. Fasting and the ketogenic diet triggers autophagy in the body. This is a natural process that clears out dysfunctional and diseased cells in the body that would otherwise be there to clog up the system and damage your body. Autophagy is kind of the opposite of cancer. Cancer is when your own cells become damaged and grow out of control. Autophagy is when your body destroys damaged cells so that they don't grow out of control. Your body gets rid of them. And this is something that your body goes through on its own. It does it every single day. But it's something that you really want as much of in your body as possible. You want as much of that as you can get. And one of the best strategies to activate autophagy in your body is to do intermittent fasting, where you eat all of your meals for the day within a 6 to 8 hour window. And the remaining 16 to 18 hours, you're fasting. Now, I have to admit to you guys, this is not what I do. I come from the bodybuilder kind of gym rat club where we eat every 2 hours. If we wake up in the middle of the night, we eat again. You know, this is kind of the opposite of what I've kind of done. And especially back in my bodybuilder days, I would never go more than 2 hours without, eating a big meal because we're trying to build a ridiculous amount of muscle tissue. But for the average person who doesn't do, weights 4 or 5 days a week and cardio every day, for those of you that aren't doing that, it's a totally different metabolism. It's a totally different system. But this 6 to 8 hour window where you eat your meals and then the remaining 16 to 18 hours you're fasting, this appears to be the sweet spot to activate autophagy in your body. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, I would be starving to death if I did that. But that only happens for a little while. The patients that I've seen do this, and I don't do a lot of this in my program. This is the intermittent fasting is something that I haven't really done a lot of. But there's more and more research showing the benefits of it. And Dr. Mercola is one of the big proponents of it. But what I've seen in patients that do this is their bodies gets used to this after, a few weeks, and your body becomes accustomed to only eating during these certain times, and they actually feel full of energy because of the metabolism changes that take place. Patients that I've seen do this actually feel really good on this 16 to 18 hour intermittent fasting window. And Dr. Mercola even talks about this with athletes and says that athletes can get away with as little as 12 hours a day. And I think that's what I might do. I might try this where I do a 12 on and 12 off because, I'm trying to be more athletic and build more muscle than the average person. But the keto fast protocol is essentially a hybrid designed to optimize the benefits of fasting while making it painless and easy, and also getting the benefits of autophagy in the body and the benefits of keto all at the same time. And the neat thing about that is it creates something called superoxides in your body. And superoxides are involved in repair and the regeneration phase of your body. Now, we're going to talk a lot more about this at the workshop that is going to be Wednesday night, May the 8th at 6:30 p.m. at the Hampton Inn in Broussard. And if you want to know more about that, you can call my office to register at 837-7174. That's 837-7174. Don't go away. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Get Well Acadiana with Dr. Kevin. Thank you so much for joining me on this very important show today. The last thing that I wanted to discuss with you guys today are some of the drawbacks of staying in ketosis for long periods of time. I'm convinced that most people should cycle in and out of ketosis, meaning you should not do keto long term, because I think the problem is you're going to hit a plateau. There's lots of evidence out there that if you stay on long-term keto, which means your insulin will be down and your body will be in fat burning mode. Your body's using fat for fuel, and its bioenergetic fuel is being cycled as fat. And when your insulin is low and you're fueled with fat, what can eventually happen is your body can become almost reluctant to fuel itself with carbohydrates. So what that means is that over time, your body will just almost stop being able to use carbohydrates if it needs to. And that's not exactly a healthy state to be in either. You become what's called glucose intolerant. And so I don't feel that you should stay in something so long that your body begins to permanently change. I think that you should do keto until you start to hit a plateau, and then maybe do a fast or do something else. And I tell you what I usually have people do, and they love this, is a cheat meal. All you have to do is go do a cheat meal. Patients love that. And it's going to reset your leptin. It's going to reset your insulin balance. And then what you're going to find is that you're going to start to go back into ketosis, and you can continue with your healthy weight loss. Well, what does a cheat meal mean? That means just go eat whatever you want and let your body reset itself. And then you can go on and hit keto and continue to lose weight and bring your body back into keto. And that way your body is not going to make any permanent changes and become glucose intolerant. Now, insulin also suppresses your liver's ability to produce glucose, and that impairs something called gluconeogenesis, and you don't really want that either. That means that your insulin levels are too low for too long, and your glucose levels can start to rise. And this is not universally true for everyone. It can occur, and it's something that if you don't throw a cheat meal in there every now and then, that can start to happen, and that's not something that you really want either. Now, listen, guys, it's important that you have a coach through this, because otherwise every day is going to turn into a cheat meal. You know, you can't do that either. That's a cheat meal. Oh, this is a cheat meal. No, this is just a cheat meal. Pretty soon, like, you're off keto. I'm talking once every 3 or 4 months, you need to reset your body's leptin and insulin level. You know, you have to watch those slippery slopes, because people will then end up saying everything is a cheat meal. Now, this is important that you have someone that can help guide you through all of this, because obviously this is complicated. You have to know what you're doing and how to do it. And that's why having a weight loss coach is such important aspect of all of this. I'm a nationally recognized weight loss coach. I've helped hundreds and hundreds of patients lose weight easily and naturally. And guys, it doesn't have to be this hard. And there are real things going on inside your body that are signaling fat storage. And if we can figure out what those things are and turn those signals off, weight loss becomes much, much easier. And I will be with you every step of the way. We can share recipes. We can create food plans. That's sort of what I do. Now, there's another hormone that I haven't had a chance to talk to you guys about today, and that's called glucagon. Now, I'm not going to throw too much physiology at y'all because I don't want y'all to glass over and tune out with all the medical lingo, but just follow along with me on this. Your body, whenever you eat, is going to produce one of two hormones. It's either going to produce insulin or it's going to produce glucagon. Now, these two hormones are inversely proportional, meaning you're either going to have a lot of one and a little bit of the other, or vice versa. Now, insulin's job is to store fat, and glucagon's job is to burn fat. Now, they're inversely proportional, meaning if you have a whole bunch of insulin, the fat storing one, no matter how hard you try, you're going to have a little bit of glucagon, which is the fat burning one. And if we can convert your body over to having a whole bunch of glucagon, the fat burner, then it will only have a little bit of insulin, the fat storer. Now, with the average American having 7 times too many carbohydrates in their diet, everybody has a whole bunch of insulin and a tiny little bit of glucagon. We have to convert that system. The secret to you losing weight and living a long, healthy, thin life is that we have to make your body a glucagon producing machine. If we can switch this around from a whole bunch of insulin and a little bit of glucagon, if we can change that over to a whole bunch of glucagon and a tiny little bit of insulin, we can make reaching your weight loss goals very simple. It doesn't have to be this hard. Being a glucagon producer and not an insulin producer is very important to getting your body to lose weight and be healthy. It's not just about weight. It's also about living a long, healthy, disease-free life. Now, if you guys are interested in knowing more about this, last week, several of you asked me to put together a workshop for this ketogenic program. And I told y'all on last week's show, if enough of y'all called and you wanted me to put together a workshop, I would put something together for you guys. And I've spent a lot of time putting together 8 tips for weight loss on the ketogenic program. So it's called 8 Steps to Keto. And if you guys are interested in coming to that, you can call my office at 837-7174 and leave your name and number on the machine, and we'll call you back when we get to work Monday and get your seat registered. Now, by the way, if you can get a partner to do this with you, it's always fun to have somebody that does it with you. You guys can compare, and it's like a little, it's almost like a little contest, and, you guys can share. So if you can think of someone to bring with you, bring them. If not, that's cool too. But if you can, bring a partner. Find a weight loss partner to do this with you. That number was 837-7174. Guys, you can do this. You can be a healthier person. I will coach you through it the whole way. I will be with you every step of the way. That number was 837-7174. Have a great weekend. That workshop was next Wednesday night. I hope to see you all there. 837-7174. Have a good weekend.